Hi there. This is FraterIAC, and I wanted to post a review about one of the best books around in terms of bridging science, the science of physics, and spirituality in terms of the Barden Path of Ascent. Uh, it's called Stalking the Wild Pendulum, and it was written by Itzhak Bentov, which is very interesting because he wasn't a highfalutin kind of an academician. He was a garage inventor, but he was really, really smart. And, he was able to make a lot of medical devices using his knowledge of physics and make a pretty good living as an inventor. He published this book back in 1977. So that gives you an idea of how long this has been around. It's almost 50 years, but it's as relevant today as it was then. So now, William Tiller, the great William Tiller, the physicist, actually wrote the preface to the book. Um, he writes that there have been some small beginnings made toward a new self-image for humankind. How do we think of our species? We're almost completely materialistic these days. But what Tiller is talking about and what Bentov is talking about is something that emphasizes the human wholeness and connectivity with the divine providence, the sacred earth, and each other. Everything seems to interact with everything else at many subtle levels of the universe beyond the purely physical level. And the deeper we penetrate into these other levels, the more we realize that we are all one. We are all connected. And this book, he goes on, takes a great step forward just by saying it, just by articulating that fact. And that contributes a lot to our understanding and future development as a species, particularly now with the change in age and we're moving toward decentralization and kind of a spiritual awakening. This book is a great underlayment for that. So now let's look at the contents. uh, he talks about sound waves and vibration. He talks about vision. He talks about wave motion. uh, an experiment with time. I just posted a video on my YouTube channel about focused concentration that has the experiment with time that he puts here in chapter 4 of his book. But in chapter 5 and chapter 6, he talks about something that's really, really important that I have on the next slide. And then he goes on, he talks about divine providence. He talks about the nature of cognition, a model of the universe. And he's got some pretty interesting appendix in the book, too. So it's a great book. I highly recommend it. Now, consider this diagram. This comes, figure 30. This comes from chapter 5, as I said, of Bentov. And what he says here, I mean, look at the diagram itself. And you've got atom, virus, plant, dog, and man. Okay. So we have F1 to F5. Most humans operate within this range. And what he talks about here is it's two axes. There's the quality of consciousness, which is this upward path, this upward trajectory of spiritual quality or spiritual ascent that leads ultimately to connecting with the Godhead, right? And then over here, you have the stuff you can do with this new knowledge, which is called quantity. And in our discipline, the quality concept is the extent to which you have ennobled your character In other words, the extent to which you can exercise complete control over what you allow yourself to feel, think, say, and do, right? And then this quantity, as you ascend at your spiritual level and become more spiritually mature, you gain what Barden calls magical authority, which is this lower axis, this horizontal axis. And we see that this is the information handling capacity of the nervous system, but it's more than that. Because what is the nervous system? Is it just encased in the body where you've got a bunch of neurons firing? Or does consciousness extend outside the body? Does perception extend outside the body? Well, Bentov and most of the people on these threads say that it does. And I agree with that. I think reality goes beyond this node of awareness that is you. We are all connected. There's a connectedness with each other, with the consciousness of the earth, with the spirit world, and certainly with divine providence. I've come to believe that's our birthright. We merely need to remember it. So what Bentov is saying here, as this curve bends, look at it. Here we have very, very few options. Then we go on up to, normal human experience. And the options we have to react to any stimuli are pretty limited to the material world. They're material options. But then as we go through the soul mirrors, and go through the steps, and we learn to wield the elemental forces, the fluids. We connect with our holy guardian angel and the rest of the spirit world. We connect with the Godhead. Look at what happens to this line. Every level up that we go in the Barden path, we have a far greater range of possible possible responses that we can make to any given stimuli. That's the quantity. And in the practice of magical evocation, right at the beginning, Barden introduces the concept of magical authority. So there is a direct positive correlation between your spiritual maturity and your magical authority. As this grows, so grows this. I think this is just brilliant, considering he did this in 1977. When I was in high school, because I was in high school in the 70s, we had one computer in the whole school, and it was a punch card computer. You couldn't even, it didn't even have a keyboard. There was no screen. You punched it and you got a graph that came out. I was like, ugh, you know. But later on, of course, we had computers, but he didn't have any of that. And back in the 1970s, 1960s, 1950s, people like Barden and Muni Sadhu, Stylianos Ateshlis, how in the world, without the internet and this sum total of knowledge that you could just call up at your fingertips, how did they advance to the degree that they did advance? What about Paracelsus? How did John Dee advance? How did humanity guard and grow these secrets, this esoteric knowledge? And now that we have the internet, we can get on the platform, we can share it, and we can look at all kinds of things. But it's amazing to me that we have this ability to share and compare notes right at our fingertips. It's wonderful. And we can do multimedia. I'm doing this video. Who knew? But anyway, look at the last paragraph on this writing here. The quality of consciousness defines the degree of refinement of such a response and its range. So, in other words, as your quality of consciousness, your spiritual development proceeds, you have a greater repertoire of magical as well as material responses. You have physical responses, emotional responses, mental responses, and certainly, at the higher levels, the spirit level, you have a lot more leeway in how you respond and how you create the reality that is around you through controlling what you allow yourself to feel, think, say, and do. That's what this is. And so I wanted to post this review here. And again, Itzhak Bentov, Stalking the Wild Pendulum. It is a wonderful book. It was relevant then, and it is in fact relevant now, more so than ever. Anyway, have a good day. Thank you.